As America begins making a hard right turn, thank God, now is the time to start getting the theology and philosophy correct. Why? Well, because it underlies everything we do as a nation, beginning with our worldview. It's the basis for our laws, our common sense decisions on what's right and wrong, who we elect, how our children are raised, the sanctity of marriage, everything. Since roughly 70% of Americans claim Christianity as their religion, we need to start there because so many people claim to live their lives as followers of Christ. There are in America approximately 180 million Protestants scattered over roughly 40,000 denominations. Then there are about 70 million Catholics. Protestants rely heavily on just the Bible, sola scriptura, sacred scriptures, as the source of their belief and teachings, while Catholics lean on church teaching, which incorporates both scripture and tradition. While there's a lot of crossover and overlap, both of these ways of experiencing Christianity cannot be valid on their own. Protestants and Catholics both honor and respect and follow sacred scripture. But only Catholics adhere also to tradition. So there's a disconnect here with regard to the Bible, sacred scripture. Protestantism incorrectly believes that everything is contained in the Bible. Catholicism has never taught that, and the church has never accepted that because it doesn't make sense. The Bible, the canon, a word meaning list of books, the canon of scripture in the Bible, was not fully and completely settled until the beginning of the 5th century. There was no such thing as a Bible until the year 405, when the canon was declared by Pope Damasus I at the Council of Rome. When you stop then and consider all the truths of Christianity that were already in place before there was a Bible, it's ridiculous to think the Bible is the end-all, be-all. The incarnate Son of God, the eternal Logos, established a church, not a book. That book, or rather 73 books, flowed from the church as nothing more than the written down portion of the oral tradition, which had been preached orally by first the apostles and then their followers and their successors and their successors and their successors for 2,000 years. This is how it went for nearly 400 years. That 400 years, that's 400 years. If you're keeping score at home, this means the apostles never saw a Bible. All those martyrs in the Colosseum never saw a Bible. There was no such thing as a Bible. For example, during the Jewish and then Roman persecutions, which took place during the first 300 years or so of the church, there were all sorts of heresies. Chief among them, being Jesus Christ, was not divine. That one was called Arianism, named after a priest, Arius. It was dominant throughout the Mediterranean world and was so dominant that just a few years after the persecutions by the Romans ended, a council had to be called in Nicaea to address it. That was in 325 AD. There was no settled canon of Scripture. This is very important. There was no settled canon of Scripture, the Bible, for another 80 years. So without the Bible to appeal to, how was the question of the divinity of Jesus settled? By the oral tradition of the church, from what the apostles had taught and passed down to their successors, and so on. The first of their successors, known as the apostolic fathers, because it's the apostles and then immediately their successors who are fathers of the church. So it's the apostolic fathers. It's the first generation after the apostles have died. Those who heard from the mouths of the apostles themselves. That's who these apostolic fathers are. And they became the apostles' followers. These first fathers of the church carried on the teachings of the apostles about the divinity of Christ. That Protestants believe today that Jesus is the Son of God does not come from the Bible. Likewise, that Protestants today believe in the Holy Trinity does not come from the Bible. Those beliefs come from the oral tradition of the church, some of which made it into the Bible. But you won't find the word Trinity, for example, in the Bible. It's not there. Why does all this matter beyond just theological reasons and discussions? Because 1,600 years later, here in America, Protestants make many of their political and cultural choices based on the Bible. You hear it all the time. So pump the brakes. How are Protestants, and many poorly taught Catholics, basing their views of society on the Bible when they have an incorrect understanding of the Bible? Now, for the moment, we're going to leave that discussion here. We're going to return to it here in the next few days. But we're going to come back to it, as we said, because the entire people's revolution can very well rise and or fall on getting the Bible and Christianity right.